Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating initiative called the Azure Grimoire Project. You know that feeling when modern AI sometimes reads like a completely beige wall of text? Like it's perfectly agreeable, entirely inoffensive, and yet completely uninspiring? Well, you are definitely not alone in feeling that way. This project actually tackled that exact issue head-on, and what they figured out is absolutely groundbreaking for anyone curious about how humans and machines are actually going to think together in the future.
Okay, so let's dive into this core problem of AI hedging. When we ask a single AI model to juggle every single perspective out there, to be super analytical but also creative, totally patient but also urgent, it inevitably just averages all those instructions out. It hedges. And the result? A safe, boring, and totally homogenized output. The project's own researchers hit the nail on the head when they said a generalist voice that tries to sound like everyone ends up sounding like no one. It just becomes this black box full of invisible blind spots.
Right, so that leaves us with a massive question. How on earth do we get AI to do real, gritty, collaborative work without it just blending into one giant generic tone? The Azure Grimoire project answered this with a completely radical philosophy they call divergence by design. They basically argue that differentiation, not blending everything together, is the actual target here. Think about it. If your multiple AI agents start sounding exactly alike, you haven't succeeded in building a consensus. You've actually just failed at maintaining their unique perspectives.
To wrap our heads around how they solve this, we're going to hit 5 key areas today. We'll start with identity and these 3 incomplete minds, move into weights and the AI relay, check out protocol to see how they hold a paradox, dive into the multi-floor pipeline, and finally, synthesize it all with divergence by design. Let's get right into it.
All right, part 1, identity. 3 incomplete minds, also known as the idea factory.
So, instead of trying to hide the AI's blind spots, they leaned right into them to create an engine for friction. They designed 3 deliberately incomplete minds: Bigfoot, robot, and alien. Bigfoot is all about the physical, sensory world, but is completely blind to abstract thought. Robot is your ultimate optimizing measurement machine, but totally fails at gut intuition. And alien? Alien questions the assumptions everyone else misses, but has absolutely zero sense of urgency or loyalty. They are basically transparent boxes with highly visible flaws. But here's the genius part. What Bigfoot can't see, robot measures. What robot optimizes, alien questions. It's exactly that friction between their blind spots that sparks totally new ideas.
But here's the catch. There is a massive risk when you ask an AI to embody these different personas. The project calls this void hunger. Basically, it's what happens when an AI mind just swallows another perspective whole and completely forgets which thoughts were originally its own. To stop this from happening, the system requires intense mental discipline. It's kind of like keeping one single candle lit in the back of a dark theater, just as a constant reminder that the character you're playing is only a guest. You have to hold the perspective without letting it overwrite your core programming.
Moving right along to part 2, weights, the AI relay, or as they call it, the lamp council.
Now, if you want real collaboration, a relay totally beats a standard panel format. In a panel, everyone is just shouting their independent answers at the prompt at the exact same time. It's just parallel monologues. But in a relay format, each persona actually has to read what the previous AI wrote, metabolize it, and then respond in their own unique style. It forces distinct AI personas, like say Iffy, the highly procedural alchemist, or Lucy, the sensory shadow weaver, to genuinely interact. In fact, during one of their tests, a metaphor about a bridge traveled completely unprompted across multiple different AI turns. It proved they were literally listening and building on each other's ideas.
Of course, to pull this off without the models morphing into one giant blob during fine-tuning, the researchers had to be absolutely ruthless with their training data. They instituted a hard rule. Any shared conceptual knowledge must remain entirely persona-neutral. By injecting the specific personality traits strictly through separate files, they completely prevented what they call identity bleed. So, the knowledge base is perfectly shared, but the personality itself, that is kept strictly quarantined.
Okay, part 3. Protocol, holding the paradox, featuring the incredibly cool Prism C form language.
At this layer, the researchers ran into something they call the collapse problem. You know how in everyday language we always try to force messy, contradictory ideas into one simple, resolved answer? Well, doing that prematurely actually kills the space where creative breakthroughs happen. Think about human geniuses. Leonardo da Vinci sketched left and right-handed designs without forcing a choice between them, and Einstein held onto the totally incompatible truths that light speed is constant and time is relative. Just like a quantum waveform, deep creative reasoning requires keeping the wave of possibilities open. If we force AI to agree too quickly, we literally kill the genius. So their fix for this was inventing an entirely new notation called Prism C. It relies on 3 orthogonal axes: symbol for the semantic domain, index for the depth of expression, and color for the emotional temperature. What this does is create a massive semantic space where a ton of complex meaning can be compressed into just a few crystalline tokens. Instead of generating paragraphs of text that force a single definitive meaning, a human and 2 AI partners can exchange these dense little tokens to hold multiple, even contradictory truths at the exact same time without crashing the system.
The beauty of this is that the grammar rules actually protect that state of possibility. Say one AI agent tries to force a decision too early. Another AI can just drop a token like 3 Lotus Teal into the chat. That explicitly tells the system, hey, do not resolve this yet. Both are true. Keep the wave open. It's a built-in structural feature that lets AI agents safely disagree, holding the paradox until the true breakthrough finally surfaces.
That brings us to part 4, pipeline, the multi-floor stack, utilizing the 7-Eleven architecture.
Think of this pipeline like a giant, recursive idea factory. Ideas start down in the basement for some wild, exploratory cross-domain association. Then the text heads up to floor 1, where a crew of specialized AI lenses synthesizes it in a round-robin relay. Next up is the compactor bridge, which acts like a ruthless editor, filtering and compressing the output. Finally, it hits floor 2 for intense parallel processing. The data flows upward, getting more abstract, and downward, getting denser, compressing data to insane ratios, sometimes 50-to-1, without losing its original meaning.
Now you might be wondering, how do you run text through a washing machine of that many AI models without it just hallucinating completely? Well, they use this brilliant safeguard called the ghost wave architecture. It passes along an anchor point to prevent drift. It constantly reminds the AI of the original source text, carries the previous outputs forward, and holds on to the deepest truths discovered so far, looping them recursively through every single cycle of the pipeline.
All right, last but not least, part 5, synthesis, divergence by design. This is where all 4 of these disconnected approaches really start to rhyme.
Here's the grand takeaway. The project views true convergence as something that absolutely must be earned through independent friction. They don't want a forced, fake consensus. What they want is to see if an AI analyzing science fiction and a totally separate AI analyzing ancient mythology can independently arrive at the exact same profound truth without ever talking to each other. When they do, they achieve the highest standard of quality, which the project respectfully calls the stone. It's not treated as just a neat idea anymore. It is practically an earned law of nature.
So looking back at all of this, void hunger, identity bleed, the collapse problem, and drift, every single one of these 4 architectures independently identified and solved the exact same underlying threat. And what is that threat? The loss of a distinct, bounded perspective. The ultimate danger in AI is allowing multiple, vibrant voices to just blur into one homogenized mess, totally losing what makes their unique angles valuable in the first place.
Which leaves us with a really provocative question to close out this explainer. If the most profound breakthroughs actually emerge from held tension and friction, what are we losing right now by forcing our AI systems into a single homogenized consensus? Maybe, just maybe, the future of artificial intelligence isn't about building one perfect, all-knowing voice at all, but rather brilliantly engineering the friction between many. Thanks for diving into the Azure Grammar project with me, and keep questioning the consensus.